Ladies and gentlemen, members and guests, candidates, media, good morning and welcome to another beautiful day in Port Angeles. And dare I say, with the Hawks finally winning, it is a beautiful day.
Doggone you.
But we also want Port Angeles to win. We want this to be a city where the infrastructure works great, where goods and services are provided, where the business climate prospers, because we know as a business organization, as the city goes, so does our economic prosperity go. With that, we bring in city council candidates, so they will not only tell us their philosophy on governing, but take questions from us, the business association, to their intent should they get elected. With that said, let's move right away to the forum. First, let's introduce our candidates. We have Mike Merideth, welcome. And his challenger, Marilee Smith. Good morning, welcome. It's been the same forum we'll continue with. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to open, followed by 2 minutes to add on, refute, whatever they like to do. Then we go to questions by the members. Guests are always welcome. If we have time, we'll get to you next. And then we will finish with a 2-minute close. Mike guessed the number closest, so he will start for 5 minutes. Mike.
Sorry, I didn't stand over here.
Just put it closer.
Good morning, my name is Michael Merideth. I'm a 35-year resident of Port Angeles and a 40-year resident of Clallam County. Graduated from Port Angeles High School. Also graduated from Peninsula College with a degree in fisheries and also a degree in general studies. I work for a local contracting company in Port Angeles. I drive a self-loading log truck for Brook & Brook Construction. And I grew up around here, playing in our parks, fishing in our harbors, going to our schools, and I decided to stay here. And this is my home. I would like to see it continue to prosper and grow. I think our area is one of the best around. I don't want it to be just a stop over a pass-through for tourists. A tourist is not somebody that buys groceries at Safeway and gas and continues on. I like to keep people here and have those people tell others. The more people we tell, the more chance we have of businesses locating to our area. We need to increase the tax base, not the tax rate. I think that this area has a lot of talent. It has a lot of people willing to work, and we need to make sure that those people are getting to work. The infrastructure of the area, I like to see grow. I love to see what happened downtown. When you get off that ferry, years ago when I was a kid, you got off that ferry, you saw old rotten pilings and buildings. Now you get off that ferry and you see something that would cause you to get out, look around, and see what our city has. People often ask, where are you from when you're from out of town? I say, well, I'm from Port Angeles. Well, where's that? Well, it's across from Victoria. Oh, I've been there. I said, well, how did you get there? By the ferry? Well, you probably went out of Port Angeles. Oh, yeah, that was a nice little city. I don't want to hear that. That's just lip service for want to be nice. People need to come here, stay here, bring business here. I also want to see the area cleaned up. I realize there's a balance. There's a balance between keeping up infrastructure and not overtaxing the citizens. Our parks, some of them are in need of repair. Lincoln Park is at the top of my list. Spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to study what to do with trees, when that money could be better spent developing that park. We need to fix it so we can get bigger planes in here. I do not know what the FAA rules are. I remember we used to have the Nevada planes came in. I don't see why we couldn't increase in that industry. But that industry can't grow if we can't get anything to land at the airport of any size. I decided to run simply based on I would like to see a more diverse city council. I'd like to represent families, generations with families. I have children here. Children are growing up here through the school. My parents live here. And I don't want them to be looking at nothing but the end of the tunnel saying, I can't wait till I get out of here. I want them to, if they go off to college, to tell people about our area, tell how great it is. I hear a lot of naysayers. That's no place. This city is great. It will continue to be great. So please think about the diversity of the city council and adding more new faces. And I appreciate you all showing up today. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Merideth, 5 minutes.
Okay, I can't see with my glasses and without them, so I'm at that middle-age crisis. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I could yell. Yeah, I can't. I hate microphones. I have an interesting background. I was raised in Reno, Nevada, in Tehran, Iran, and in Northern California. I was a woman pioneer in law enforcement. I was an early EMT before we had that designation. I eventually moved into the corporate world where I went into upper management, gave up with that, and went into entrepreneurism. I was the first employee of a software distribution company, and we sold 2/3 of all of Microsoft's products, which is like they were a garage company at the time. I also became a comedy show producer, a freelance writer. I'm a published author. I've done a lot of ghostwriting, so if anyone needs a book done, let me know. I've also done a lot of PR and marketing. I tend to not be in front of the mic. I tend to be behind the people who are at the mic, so I'm not a natural speaker, I'm a writer. I came to Port Angeles 20 years ago, and I've had a very interesting experience coming here. I bought the old priest house, so I bought the lodge. I bought a house that was a big white elephant, and it had been, a lot of work had been done to it without permits. I've been undoing it ever since. I love the property. I found it interesting that when I first came to town that the first thing the realtor, who was the listing agent, said was, well, you'll be leaving soon because no one stays. Well, I stayed. I've had 2 downtown businesses. I had Spicer's Deli, and I had the Port Angeles Community Market, so I actually have the permit for the bus transit lanes. Having a business in town was interesting. I opened my business just as the Gateway Transit Center started to pound. I had the city close the road without any notice to me on multiple occasions. I had a few run-ins with the city. I found out about all the things that are very difficult about running a business downtown. I mean, between the parking for your employees to all the little permits I had to get for every single thing. It was, it was an education. I lasted 2 years. Some of you have lasted a whole lot longer, and my hat's off to you. I've been in town, I've been going to city council meetings for the full 20 years. I go, I don't go. When I first came to town, people said, well, no, we don't pay much attention to what the city council does, and they don't pay attention to me, which I found out just shocking, because I've gone to city council meetings all my life. I was a lobbyist, as a hobby lobbyist, for consumer protection laws in California. I've always been fascinated with how small government works, or how it's supposed to work. I'm not seeing that. I see the complete apathy by people that don't show up at the city council meetings. They don't, people seem disengaged, and that's not good for anybody. I see the city council complacent, and they seem to approve everything that the city staff asks for, and that's not the balance we need to see. We need to see a check and balance where the staff makes recommendations, the staff asks for things, and the city council says yes or no. I don't see a lot of no. I also see that our city council over the last 15 years has violated public trust. And this has always concerned me. From the way the transit center project came to be, from the fact that our former mayor was investigated by the state auditor, the fluoride controversy, the fact that the city has really not been working for the people, and the fact that we're paying higher utility rates than anywhere else in the state. I find that it's not supportive, and we need to turn the ship around. I'll end with that. I'm not positive. I'm a researcher, so my look at things is from a much different perspective. Anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you, Marilyn. Mike, you have 2 minutes. Would you like to add anything?
Not really.
Okay.
They're just, I don't think the city council job is as easy as a lot of naysayers like to say. We have to pay the bills. And in the middle of paying those bills, we also have to keep up and keep improving our infrastructure. Those things cost money. And to me, it's looking at what you get for the most bang for your buck. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we get to have over the top, but that doesn't mean we can't have something nice. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And Marilee, 2 minutes. Would you like to continue on, add anything?
Yeah, I don't think we explore enough public-private partnerships. For instance, the after-school program was just abandoned last November or December. And, other communities have kept services by getting creative. I don't see that we're creative. A public-private partnership would allow the city to continue with these programs just in a different structure. I think the city council's job is a very difficult job. It is always going to be a difficult job because you're in the parental role, basically, saying yes and no, and how do we fix this problem? How do we get around this? All I'm saying is that our utility rates keep going up, our service rates keep going up, and our services keep eroding. I think I think we need to bring more brainstorming to solve some of these problems. And we need to attract some real industry. Software is one, which is something I've been interested in for years. And the other one, I think ship repair would be an excellent source because we've got that wonderful asset. And then we've got wonderful farms, and all over the world wants what we make. We just haven't marketed ourselves. That's my reply.
All right, very good. Good, thank you. Now we get to our favorite part, the Grand Inquisition. So with that, Marilee, you'll be starting off with the first question, and who has the first question? And I look at Kai, of course.
Yeah, of course.
What is your position on fluoridation of the city water supply? What would you do about it if elected?
I don't know that I'll actually have that choice. But I don't think that fluoridation should be something that the city adds based on the all of the newest information about it, and the fact that all of Europe is pretty much cutting fluoridation out of the water supply, and because of what happened in the past. 13 years ago, it was decided for us. A huge petition came about, and the city fought that petition all the way to the state Supreme Court. That violated public trust. I signed that petition, and the fact that it was like, no, well, you can't get it on a ballot, was shocking to me. I kind of wonder, after researching, the city of Detroit went bankrupt And they started not providing water services to the entire community. The one thing they didn't cut out was fluoridation, which leads me to ask why? What is so valuable about fluoridation? Is there money getting passed somewhere? Is that why they kept it? You know, there's something behind this, and I'd love to know what the answer is. It doesn't seem right. So no, I want it.
Mike, what is your opinion on fluoridation in city water?
Start with, the city has an obligation to finish the contract out until, I believe it's May. Once that's over, fluoride needs to go. It's an ethics question for me. The city is putting pharmaceuticals into our water. That doesn't need to be there. It's not an issue of public health. It's an issue of individual health. As an individual and as parents, we need to teach and do good dental hygiene. That doesn't need to be in the water forced upon everyone. I remember when my children were born, you could get fluoride tablets from Jim's Pharmacy. They gave them out for free. If you'd like to have it, you'd like your children to have it, there's other ways to get it. It doesn't need to be in the city water. And from a health standpoint, how many times has the government come back and said, yeah, whoops, that was something we shouldn't have been doing? I don't want to take that chance. We don't need it in there. It's not the same as vaccinations. Because you don't have fluoride, you're not going to infect your neighbor. Thank you.
And with that, before we go to the next question, I'd like to ask a follow-up. Not on the opinion of fluoride, but if you, either one of you are elected or one of you will be elected to city council, that's a representative position. Do you have any thoughts on a public health issue going to a survey of the public? So again, the question is, do you find anything, do you have any opinion about a decision on public health being put out to the public on a survey? Marilee.
Do I have an opinion on a survey? I think the public should be engaged in everything.
On everything.
Well, I think transparent government's wonderful. The information's out there. I find it interesting that a lot of people don't know that it's out there. But you know, I don't see any reason why, you know, interested citizens shouldn't have a voice. Interested businesses should have a voice. I mean, I don't think that just because someone's represented and is acting as your representative that they should be in a vacuum. You know, I'd like to hear people speak up more. I'd like to see people show up for city council meetings. I'd like to see people be more informed. Can't hurt.
Like public or health issue going out to a public survey?
The people definitely should have a choice. The issue is having enough time allotted to talk about these issues. When city council is at a midnight decision of having to decide something, if you're put against the fence on something to decide immediately, if it's not life or death, the answer is no. Why does it have to be decided upon so quickly? The other issue is allowing citizens to have that information. Because a doctor says so, that may be true, may not be true. But those citizens, before they're voting, we need to have discussions about it. We need to have town meetings. We need to have people showing up and people caring. Don't say afterwards, well, geez, I don't want fluoride in my water, and you never even showed up. Or you never even voted.
Very good. Next question. Connie, Port Commissioner candidate.
I'd like to get your feelings on the Lincoln Park trees. And if you are in favor of doing something about those tree obstructions, how exactly would you deal with the tree issue so that we can regain 100% use of the runway at Fairchild International?
Mike, we start with you on this question.
This is a park I played in as a kid. And it has always been dark, cold, and dingy. That park, I don't want what I do for a living to get in the way of this answer, but it needs to go. The trees need to go. And being in this industry, I know that it wouldn't, most loggers will log for 45 to 50%. That means after trucking and everything, they get 45 or 50%, the city would get 45 to 50%. All those parks do is hide vagrants, drug use, and teenage sex. People pass through those parks to get to Lincoln Park. The playground is been dismantled. Partially, I don't know if that's because of city law. I know the swing sets, merry-go-round's been taken out. I don't know if that's a federal guideline. But the trees need to go. It needs to be revamped, put in lower vegetation. That doesn't mean we have to make it a big grass field. We can put trees in there. We can leave a few of those trees in there, but we need to make that park open so those planes can get in and out of there. The port is extremely important to our area. That is the largest, fastest, easiest way to get goods and services out of Port Angeles.
Very good, Merideth. Your stance on the trees at Lincoln Park.
Wow, sex in the park. Is this from experience? You know, I have never thought that to be a very welcoming park. But at the same time, I really don't want to see, you know, a park, a generic park. You know, the airport is really important, you know. I liked his answer. I'll go with him.
I'd add one quick thing.
Yeah.
Sure, please.
If you look at Shane Park and the Dream Park, if you have a canvas that citizens are willing to go into, those citizens and businesses alike will help raise the money for those playgrounds. And I know that we can have a nice area. Shane Park's proven it. That park was not very good shape. And now that's a great area. You should see the families there during the summer.
Anything else to add, Merideth?
No, sounds great. I'll go with your plan.
All right, next question.
First, I want to commend you for stepping up the platform, right? Can you tell me a little bit about your involvement, your current community involvement? Do you belong to any clubs, any charitable organizations here?
And again, yes, we start with Merideth.
No, actually, I am a hermit. I'm a workaholic. I work all the time. I've never been a club person. The best I did is I used to work for homeless outreach and I worked for suicide prevention, but not here. You know, I write a lot, and I write for a lot of different organizations around the country, but I'm a ghostwriter, so I'm not going to talk about them. I did, when I had my business, we belonged to all these organizations, but I'm not, it's just not my personality. So no, I sit at home.
Mike, community involvements.
Well, through the most part, I am also workaholic. People see me all hours of the night. I participate with my children in the Port Angeles Swim Club, and I volunteer with them on the weekends when I can. We do timing and set up meets. I also do a lot of community events for the kids. We get asked to do one of them, Touch a Truck for Kids, through the Dry Creek PTO Association. We also have hauled firewood for the Kiwanis Firewood Scholarship Fund, and just try to help out where we can in between. And my wife also is helping out in the community when she can. She works for the state of Washington for DDR. She also used to work for Head Start and working with children. So where time allows, I guess, is what I would say. We do what we can in between.
Thank you.
Very good. Next question. Did I see our esteemed president had her
Do I
hand
get
up?
to ask one?
You do, because there's no one else with a hand up yet.
Nobody else has a hand?
Yes.
Go.
So, Jim McIntyre was bragging about lowering the So you've got the state tax, that basically what are we talking about, the sales tax, but the portion of it that comes from the county or the city. I don't know if the city council has to do with the city portion or not. Maybe it's not. But to me, it's odd that in a county, Forum County, and in the city, and I get it, different taxing authorities, but to have a difference between the 8.2 and 8.4, I think it should be the same. But would you support the city working with the county to make that unified, whether it's 8% or 8.4 or 8.2 or 8.5? It seems to make more sense if they kind of put together. But obviously they're different taxing authorities. What's your position on that?
So then, Mike, we're starting with you, and the question is, there's this disparity right now in the county between city and county taxes, and do you have a position on that? Would you advocate for a change?
The issue with that disparity between the two of those, if you look at our car dealerships for one, that would be, if you take the amount of income tax, or the amount of sales tax is so small, when you're purchasing things at Swain's, food, goods and services, import animals, versus purchasing vehicles, they're out of town people to purchase vehicles also. When we have the debt that we have in the city of Port Angeles, we need to continue to pay that off and get this done. People want lower taxes. That's great. Who doesn't? I'd love to live somewhere where there was no taxes. But that doesn't work. It's not realistic. The realistic part is we need to get out of debt. The city needs to be out of debt. The city needs to be on pace with the county. I kind of, fortunately, look at that lowering that tax rate as a come on for vote for me. And we need to be responsible. We need to pay off our debts, get everything paid up, and have a level playing field versus the county, which is right next door, versus King County or something, saying, well, we're going to lower our tax rate down to 7%. That's not really much of a comparison. Essentially, it's the comparison between walking a couple blocks down the street there and being in the county and paying 0.2% less. Why wouldn't you? Most people are going to. Let's keep that playing field level between the city and the county and keep those taxes. Those taxes need to be the same. I'd like to see them the same.
Merideth, the disparity between the two rates.
Well, you know, I've run into this. Okay, right now the federal government is trying to tax internet sales. And they have succeeded to some degree, but they want to do it so that whatever county you're purchasing or whatever place you're purchasing from, you pay that tax rate. It's a bear. I mean, it's really a bear to keep up with this. And it hurts the online businesses because I don't know if you've ever looked at how many different tax rates there are, but it's all over the map. You know, I don't understand why taxes, I mean, it would be nice if things would ratchet up at the same time. You know, that's all. I'd like to see things be more uniform. And it doesn't make sense for a county as oddly shaped as Clallam is, that has people squirreled in one couple areas, to have two different tax rates. And I did think it was just kind of a gratuitous move, and I couldn't quite understand what the point of it was. But that's me.
All right, very good. Next question. George.
As you know,
And then we've got,
Ted, do you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
As you know, the Department of Ecology, federal agencies, and others are involved with cleaning up of our beautiful harbor. What role do you think the city council should play in determining our potentially liable portion of the cleanup costs?
that goes to Merideth to begin with.
When I look at the finances, I mean, we aren't going to be, our CFO now says that we won't be completely out of debt for 19 years with the current debt that we have. I'm actually afraid of what's going to happen with the harbor. And I haven't been able to get a good handle on what is really going on with it and what portion we might end up with. I mean, but we've put off an awful lot over the last 20 years that I've been here, which is how we're in the mess we're in now. You know, I mean, between the Garbage Bluff fiasco and, you know, all this other legacy debt we have, I'm actually very afraid about that. You know, I don't see how we can tax the individuals around here more, because we already have people who can't pay their power bill, and that seems to be the only way that we can, that and taxes are the only way that we can gain more income. I don't know, I'd like to look into it a lot more, I'd like to get more information. It terrifies me.
Mike, your thoughts on the large cleanup bill and the city's responsibility?
First off, the EPA unfortunately gets to run the show. They get to dictate a lot of what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. We are, or we were, insured for that. We need to hold the insurance company accountable for what needs to be done in that harbor. And it kind of comes down the same as the sewer. It's got to be done. Fortunately, nobody wants to pay for it, but we have to do it. These projects, we need to get on these things when we know about them. Putting off and putting off and putting off and putting off just adds more regulations off in the future. If we can get this done, signed off, finished, and get out of it as quickly as possible. We need to clean up our portion of the mess. The bills need to take care of their portion of the mess and finish it up. The citizens of this city and the county don't want to see this drug on for years and years and years. Go in there and throw the boots on and get it done and get it cleaned up and get our harbor usable. It's very disappointing if you're a tourist and you come to town and you find out that Hollywood Beach is signed with closures. That's not much of an advertisement.
Okay. And before we go on to the next question by the PUD Commissioner, just want to remind the audience that proper decorum has a president waiting in line for members to answer to question first. So with that,
I really hate being president when it comes to
because remember, as
this.
a chairman, you're supposed to have no opinion.
To follow up on George's question and maybe rephrase it a little bit, you know, you've been critical of the size of our power bills or our utility bills, the debt that the city has. Would you be willing to, all these mandates that come from different agencies are obviously very expensive. Let's take the harbor cleanup. Heard from good sources that while we're busy arguing about what we're going to do, it's cleaning itself up. Would you be willing to tell those agencies, or be part of the council that would tell those agencies to pound sand?
Pound sand, take a hike, wait a while, is that your question? So, Mike, I guess the question is, how forceful would you push back, or
Well, you know, you've been critical of the debt the city has. If you're going to do all this stuff that's being mandated, you're going to have to pay for it. So are you going to support the bonding, increase in bonding to pay for the projects, or are you going to push back?
Mike?
Both. Okay, we need, like I said, we need to get this cleaned up now. Regulations are going to get worse. I am for what we have to do to take care of our share. What it ends up as is, realistically though, if there's a difference between the EPA saying we would like and we require. And you have to be willing to stand up to them and be willing to tell them, show me. I'm not going to just stand there and do it because they want it done. We need to, if we need to pass a bond to get these things done to take care of our obligation, then that's what we need to do. These obligations are requirements. And it's, again, nobody likes to see their taxes go up. Fortunately, we still need to maintain services. We need to get things done. And we're not going to get those things done by standing around crying about it. It's still going to be there. The problem will still be there tomorrow, and it will still be there a month from now. If we can prove that, in the meantime, while we're talking about it, the harbor is cleaning itself up, and we can prove that to the EPA, and that's some level of that is acceptable to them, then that's what we need to go with. I am for the realistic, not necessarily the cheapest route, but the route that will provide stability for that harbor well into the future. I don't want to come back to this. I don't want to, same thing with the garbage dump. I don't want to find out 5 years down the road that, whoops, that didn't work. We're going to have to do this again. And I don't want to come back to this harbor 10 years from now and say, well, now we're going to have to dump another $100 million into the thing because we tried to make it short. We tried to make it cheap. Hopefully that answer.
Merideth, pay, pushback, or both?
Okay, my biggest fear is that we're going to get overextended. And this has happened all around the country. I mean, there was Stockton, Vallejo, San Bernardino, Detroit, have all declared bankruptcy. There's more. And, it's like there is a question, how much is too much? And, I am very hesitant about creating any new debt because we're already up to, I would never have this kind of finances personally to have to 19 years to pay something off. I mean, we're in trouble. Pushback is one way. Right now it's with attorneys, and attorneys can tie this up forever. Attorneys and the insurance companies, they're playing the game right now. They're the ones doing it. I don't know what the current situation is with it, but I know that once you get into the legal system, it'll take 20 years to get out of there. So it's, I'd like to see everything on the table and see what choices there really are and make some hard choices about it. Having said that, the only way that we're going to get out of all this fight, we're thinking in a kind of like, I see the debt and I say, well, there's two ways to get out of debt. You buckle down and you pay it, or you increase the general income of the area. You have to raise it up. I think we really need to look seriously about making this a profitable town again. It does, we have things to sell. We have a wonderful harbor that's completely underused, in my opinion. We do have tourist opportunities. We have a lot of different things that could happen, and for whatever reason, we've never really made that jump. We tied up our fiber with one company, which was a terrible idea. We've made some bad choices. We need to make some good choices, and I think pushback is one way. I think there's a lot of choices. Let's get creative here.
Okay, very good. And Madam Chairman, before I get to your question or others, and because of the time we need for closing, I move that we extend, pursuant to our bylaws, I move that we extend our meeting up to 15 minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone who needs to leave and Smart Alec just raised his hand, so I'm at the back of the line again.
Right,
I would like to pass my question on to our Madam President.
okay, there we go.
And
Get it in there, Anna.
Don's going to hop in here, and so is Dan on this question. I've heard both of you talk about money, but you haven't explained to me that you understand where the city finances come from and the division of how they can be spent. How'd I do, Don?
Very good.
How'd I do, Dan? He's being quiet because
So then
he's Sherry. How'd I do on that question?
So the
Thank you
question
very
is,
much.
what's your understanding of where the money comes from and where it goes to?
How it can be spent. There are rules. So anyway,
So
I
then-
want to know that they know the rules.
So then we start with, Merideth, do you understand the budgeting process of the city?
I have been reading the budgets for the last 5 years that are online, and no, I don't understand it yet. Not fully. I understand the general fund, and I understand the fact that our CFO wants us to have better reserves, and I understand that our budget that our finances have been a little muddled in the past. The rules and all that, I would love if someone would explain it to me. I would love to sit down with that. I know how to read a budget. I know how to read financial statements. It's a mystery.
Mike, your understanding on the budget monies, requirements to spend?
I understand where our monies come from. Property taxes and from sales tax and from our utility taxes. I don't fully know the laws governing where those taxes can go. I also understand the word for it anyways, the surcharges essentially for our utilities on the harbor cleanup, which we had at one time on our utility bills. Also the combined sewer overflow on our utility bills. That is a question I've thought about. I've spent some time thinking about a few of these different questions that I'm hoping to have more of an understanding if I am elected with the city manager as to exactly where those funds can be allocated from. And borrowing from one to pay for another is not at the top of my priority list either. If we have those funds allocated, and then I realized at the last city council meeting they were wanting to transfer some money out of, I believe it was the harbor cleanup fund, in order to allocate a change order. And put my 2 cents worth on that. Contracting companies, that's how they make their money. They love change orders.
And to be fair, and current and former city council members could correct me if I'm wrong, but city council tends to be an entry way for many people, first time government job, and elected job. And the city does hold, if I'm correct, sessions for newly elected council members so they understand the nuances of budgeting along with other things they may or may not say or meet.
The CFO office, the door is open all the time, and they can go in any time. There are special statewide trainings for newly elected officials, but the city manager and the CFO, the door's open all the time.
Don does have his
Yes.
hand up.
Don, past president.
I don't know exactly how to phrase this, but I'll try to do as best I can. Have either of you taken the time to look and see how much time you're going to spend as a council member to get, like earlier there was comments made that the council gives a stamp of approval, whatever the staff wants at every city council meeting. And have you seen the time and effort that the council members put in to making that decision before ever getting to that council meeting? You're going to be putting in many hours looking at staff reports, going over various different things before you even get to the city council meeting to make that decision. It looks like they're giving the staff a stamp of approval, but believe me, they've taken the time and effort to put into it. Have either of you taken the time and effort to look into what you're going to be doing if you're both workaholics, of how much time and effort you're going to have to be putting in before that city council meeting?
It's probably good that they are workaholics. Mike?
Yes, that was the final decision to run. I've spent several elections pondering running, and after speaking with my employer and deciding whether or not we were going to make this work, because I am an employee, I went to Grant Monroe and spoke with him quite a bit on what is involved. And you see on the website they say believe it was 20 hours a month or something. Yeah. He thought that was the funniest thing he heard. He said, to be an effective city council person, you need to probably be putting in at least 20 hours a week, not a month, in order to do that. And when I went home and I sat down with my wife and said, I'm really at that point of going down to the courthouse and signing up. And we talked about it and decided that the city's important to us. And it's important to our kids, and we want to put in, or I want to put in the effort to do this. And that I am on board to get it done. And that was the last step in deciding to do this, was how much time, energy, effort, and running around is this going to take out of our lives. And that was the last discussion we had, and that I decided to head down to the basement of the courthouse.
Marilee, your understanding of the commitment to be a council
Well,
member?
my daughter, I lived in Port Angeles. My daughter decided to go to a private high school in Port Townsend. I drove her to and from Port Townsend every day for 4 years. I just finished a 575-page book on a cookbook on the single subject of eggs. I worked about 80 hours a week on that. My plate's pretty empty right now. My daughter's moved out. She's graduated. And I am, economy's down. Actually, it still is in the world. It's not, it's only bubbling up in a few places. I have lots of time. And I tend to, my normal week is about 60 hours a week. So I have nothing but time. And what I like to do is I like to research everything fully. I like to know a subject. I like to ask a lot of questions. And I have to understand things fully before I can actually even formulate an opinion. So I will probably be doing an awful lot more work than anyone has ever seen around here. And that tends to push the envelope. That's how I've worked all my life. So we'll see. I have more than enough time now.
Time for one more question. Sherry.
I've heard the council members or candidates talk about that the criticism of the city council cutting out the after school daycare program. The after school daycare program was losing money and competing with local businesses. So anyway, but the city council this year had a budget deficit that they had to deal with. So they did a priority setting on what is government responsible for, what is necessary, and what we could do without. So if you had to choose, with this budget deficit, what would you choose to cut out of the budget simply because we had a deficit this year? What would your priority be? What would you cut out?
Marilee, we start with you. What gets the axe?
Well, this is kind of an interesting idea. I've done a lot of research on this. It seems that a lot of cities around the country have faced this. And there's been a disconnect between the public and private sector jobs, where in this case, many of our employees at the City Hall make many times what the median income is in this town. A lot of cities have tackled this by lowering wages and benefits with city employees. In fact, Reno reduced everything across the board by 5%. If I remember right, Hayward just reduced their prices, their city employee benefits. A lot of places have been moving from doing the pension to 401ks, or the government versions of it. There's lots of ways to balance the budget besides cutting services. The complaints I've heard from people about cutting services is it wasn't just that you cut it, it was cut right after the kids came back from the holidays, from the Christmas holiday in January, and they had to scramble. And all of the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA were full with waiting lists. I don't think you can leave your people high and dry that way. There are other choices. One thing that could have been done with the Boys and Girls Club, as I said, it was a private-public partnership, which would basically take the employees out of the city and put them into an entrepreneurial role, but still use the city facilities. That was never explored. It was just like, cut it. You can't cut things without seeing what else happens. I really do think the wages are too high. This town that I grew up in, that I went to high school in, is 10 times the size of Port Angeles, and I've looked at their city salaries, and they make considerably less than what our city employees make. Squim makes less. Port Townsend makes less. Why are we paying so much? It's great jobs, great. Plus full benefits, plus pension is really an amazing package. However, nobody else is getting that. As being a self-employed person, I've had my income drop by 60% some years. That hurts. It used to rock. I think the other choices need to be made.
Mike, how would you swing the budgetary axe?
I just want to clarify something for sure. I've been critical of the after-school program. We need to cut the services to start with, the ones that are only helping the few. When you're in a budget crisis and you're in debt, you start cutting where you can cut the least amount to cause the least amount of damage and work your way up. You don't start at the top and work your way down. The services that are provided by the city, some of these services can, and yes, they are overloaded on some outside agencies, but these outside agencies are there. Cutting, let's say you go and you cut 10 people's salary by 10% so we can add another person so we can provide services. I wouldn't want to be that one person that got that job because the rest of them took a 10% pay cut. That'd be for an interesting workplace, for sure. The areas we need to cut, again, little things that nickel and dime us. I'm not sure how much green paint goes for, but I heard it's pretty expensive. And expensive crosswalks downtown, infrastructure things that we don't think ahead of time. The labor to grind out downtown up to those concrete sidewalks or crosswalks without damaging them when we could have just simply stamped them and painted them. It's nice, it's aesthetically pleasing, it is expensive to maintain. And with anything, we've got to be realistic. We've got to think ahead and we've got to decide what we can do now, and when the city's in a better condition, what we can do later. And in order to keep good people, you got to pay good wages. That doesn't mean that we're paying too little or too much. What it means is maybe the city needs to review what some of these wages are, and we have obligations to unions. And when those unions require us to pay a certain cost of living raise, it's the same with my employer. Maybe he doesn't want to pay that, but when you sign a contract, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to follow that contract.
Dan, I'm going to sneak you in. Lightning round. They're about 30 seconds to answer.
Over the last couple of years, the city's been trying to stash a little money away for reserves for a rainy day fund. Do you think that's a good idea? And how much of a reserve fund do you think we ought to have?
30 seconds, Mike.
It's a great idea. We all need to do it. Not only at home, but at the city and the county, at the state level, federal level. Everybody needs to be doing it because sooner or later, it's going to rain. And we need to have that funding there. Oh, as far as what that amount needs to be.
Percentage-wise.
I think we need a year.
Marilee, 30 seconds. What's your opinion on reserve funds? How much?
Well, we have a lot of balloon payments. We have a balloon payment coming up of $1 million in 5 years for the nickel properties, or nitro. Yeah. And it's like I find things when I go through the budget that I'm like stunned by. I think we have an excellent CFO. I think he's got a good handle on it. I completely agree with what he's recommending, and I think we need to do a 5-year plan, not a 1-year budget, but all our budgets need to be 2 years to 5 years. I don't think that doing a 1-year little narrow thing and then not sticking to the budget every time, through the year is a good idea. I think the budgets need to be done for a longer period of time. 5 years is what I would recommend. And, really, yeah, we've got to have reserves. We should have reserves for street funds. We should have reserves for all infrastructures. We had them, and then they got raided. So I think we need to go back to a more realistic type of budgeting.
So with that, and before we go to closing, once again, the Port Angeles Business Association always admires citizens who will put themselves out there to help run our business. With that, let's give these candidates a hand. And we will start with Merideth and a 2-minute close.
I'm tired of talking. I don't think there's a lot of difference between Mike and I. I think we agree on an awful lot of things. I think he's great. I really do. It's like, I'd vote for you. What am I doing running? I think our hearts are in the right place. I know my heart's in the right place. I'm not doing this because I want to do it, because I've ever had any aspirations to do politics. I don't like it. But it came to a point where, I really do feel that I have a civic duty to step up. I took to heart, Kennedy's inaugural speech, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. That's why I got into lobbying in the state of California for consumer protection laws, all of which have been neutered since, but that's another issue. I think people can do a lot, and I really would like to see this town come together as a community, because it's been scattered. I think that we really need to do more downtown festivals. We need to do more block parties. We need to really encourage the neighborhood watch programs. I think that, seeing lots of festivals like every summer downtown would be wonderful. And I've got lots of ideas for those, but that's another point. I'd like to see us really get, a world-class hotel and get a shipbuilding industry going in the harbor, and get a good, program for entrepreneurs, for software programmers. And I think we can take a lot of our kids and get them into programming. And that's definitely a growth industry. I think that we can turn town around. And I see a lot of great things happening right now. So I'm a complete idealist.
Thank you, Merideth. And Mike, your closing.
Make this brief. This is our city. This is the town I live in. It's the town I chose to live in. There are a lot of great cities in this country. This is one where I'm going to stay. And choosing to run, it's not to say that this city is a disaster and the city council is a disaster. That's not the case. The city council is faced with hard choices. And I'm willing to stand up and be there and make some of these hard choices. I want to represent a diverse group, diverse ages, and those of us that chose to stay here. It doesn't mean that we're here to tear the city apart. We need to get together, we need to be positive, we need to bring industry here, we need to be working heavily with the port. The port's a huge asset to us, and that port is also in our city. It is not their own. The decisions that are made there are decisions that affect us also. And I realize nobody wants new taxes, everybody wants to have extra money. Let's get there. Let's find a way. We need to be planning ahead for things that might be up and coming, and we need to look at things that we may have to pay for in the future. And we need to be on top of those. Don't be living it up when times are great. And I just want to clarify something quickly. The 1 year, we need a year of reserves, not necessarily a 1 year budget. So, thank you very much, and thank everybody for coming.
Thank you, candidates, for position number 5, Port Angeles City Council. Ladies and gentlemen, members and guests, candidates, media, good morning and welcome to another beautiful day in Port Angeles. And dare I say, with the Hawks finally winning, it is a beautiful day.
Doggone you.
But we also want Port Angeles to win. We want this to be a city where the infrastructure works great, where goods and services are provided, where the business climate prospers. Because we know as a business organization, as the city goes, so does our economic prosperity go. With that, we bring in city council candidates, so they will not only tell us their philosophy on governing, but take questions from us, the business association, to their intent should they get elected. With that said, let's move right away to the forum. First, let's introduce our candidates. We have Mike Merideth, welcome. And his challenger, Marilee Smith. Good morning, welcome. It's been the same forum we'll continue with. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to open, followed by 2 minutes to add on, refute, whatever they like to do. Then we go to questions by the members. Guests are always welcome. If we have time, we'll get to you next. And then we will finish with a 2-minute close. Mike guessed the number closest, so he will start for 5 minutes. Mike.
Sorry, I'm gonna stand over here.
Just put it closer.
Good morning, my name is Michael Merideth. I'm a 35-year resident of Port Angeles and a 40-year resident of Clallam County. Graduated from Port Angeles High School. Also graduated from Peninsula College with a degree in fisheries and also a degree in general studies. I work for a local contracting company in Port Angeles. I drive a self-loading log truck for Brook & Brook Construction. And I grew up around here playing in our parks, fishing in our harbors, going to our schools, and I decided to stay here. And this is my home. I would like to see it continue to prosper and grow. I think our area is one of the best around. I don't want it to be just a stop over or a pass through for tourists. A tourist is not somebody that buys groceries at Safeway and gas and continues on. I like to keep people here and have those people tell others. The more people we tell, the more chance we have of businesses locating to our area. We need to increase the tax base, not the tax rate. I think that this area has a lot of talent. It has a lot of people willing to work, and we need to make sure that those people are getting to work. The infrastructure of the area, I like to see grow. I love to see what happened downtown. When you get off that ferry, years ago when I was a kid, you got off that ferry, you saw old rotten pilings and buildings. Now you get off that ferry and you see something that would cause you to get out, look around, and see what our city has. People often ask, where are you from when you're from?
I bought a house that was a big white elephant, and it had been, a lot of work had been done to it without permits. I've been undoing it ever since. I love the property. I found it interesting that when I first came to town that the first thing the realtor who was the listing agent said was, well, you'll be leaving soon because no one stays. Well, I stayed. I've had 2 downtown businesses. I had Spicer's Deli, and I had the Port Angeles Community Market, so I actually have the permit for the bus transit lanes. Having a business in town was interesting. I opened my business just as the Gateway Transit Center started to pound. I had the city close the road without any notice to me on multiple occasions. I had a few run-ins with the city. I found out about all the things that are very difficult about running a business downtown. I mean, between the parking for your employees to all the little permits I had to get for every single thing. It was, it was an education. I lasted 2 years. Some of you have lasted a whole lot longer, and my hat's off to you. I've been in town, I've been going to city council meetings for the full 20 years. I go, I don't go. When I first came to town, people said, well, no, we don't pay much attention to what the city council does, and they don't pay attention to me, which I found out just shocking, because I've gone to city council meetings all my life. I was a lobbyist as a hobby, lobbyist for consumer protection laws in California. I've always been fascinated with how small government works, or how it's supposed to work.
I'm out of town, so I'm from Port Angeles. Well, where's that? Well, it's across from Victoria. Oh, I've been there. So, well, how did you get there? By the ferry? Well, you probably went out of Port Angeles. Oh, yeah, that was a nice little city. I don't want to hear that. That's just lip service for want to be nice. People need to come here, stay here, bring business here. I also want to see the area cleaned up. I realize there's a balance. There's a balance between keeping up infrastructure and not overtaxing the citizens. Our parks, some of them are in need of repair. Lincoln Park is at the top of my list. Spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to study what to do with trees, when that money could be better spent developing that park. We need to fix it so we can get bigger planes in here. I do not know what the FAA rules are. I remember we used to have the Nevada planes came in. I don't see why we couldn't increase in that industry, but that industry can't grow if we can't get anything to land at the airport of any size. I decided to run simply based on I would like to see a more diverse city council. I'd like to represent families, generations with families. I have children here. Children are growing up here through the school. My parents live here. And I don't want them to be looking at nothing but the end of the tunnel saying, I can't wait till I get out of here. I want them to, if they go off to college, to tell people about our area, tell how great it is. I hear a lot of naysayers. That's no place. This city is great. It will continue to be great. So please think about the diversity of the city council and adding more new faces. And I appreciate you all showing up today. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Merideth, 5 minutes.
Okay, I can't see with my glasses and without them, so I'm at that middle-age crisis. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I could yell. Yeah, I can't. I hate microphones. I have an interesting background. I was raised in Reno, Nevada, in Tehran, Iran, and in Northern California. I was a woman pioneer in law enforcement. I was an early EMT before we had that designation. I eventually moved into the corporate world where I went into upper management, gave up with that, and went into entrepreneurism. I was the first employee of a software distribution company, and we sold 2/3 of all of Microsoft's products, which is like they were a garage company at the time. I also became a comedy show producer, a freelance writer. I'm a published author. I've done a lot of ghostwriting, so if anyone needs a book done, let me know. I've also done a lot of PR and marketing. I tend to not be in front of the mic. I tend to be behind the people who are at the mic, so I'm not a natural speaker. I'm a writer. I came to Port Angeles 20 years ago, and I've had a very interesting experience coming here. I bought the old priest house. So I bought the lodge.